Hi, I'm Almetria Vaba, and this is City County Profiles. My guest today is Scott Laurence. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so currently you are the superintendent for the San Mateo High School District.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about your background, some things that influenced you growing up.
Well, I grew up in the Central Valley outside of Fresno on a farm. And when I went to a very small country high school, same place my dad went to school. And then in the 1970s, I went to Stanford University. And I think at that point in time was when I started to realize that I enjoyed being around high school age students. I played baseball at Stanford, and I was a history and economics major, and got hurt and ended up coaching for a few years. And then in 1980, I walked across the street with my teaching credential and started my my teaching experience at Palo Alto High School, which is right across the street. And then on and off, for the last 30 years, I've been gradually moving up what would be considered the chain of academics or public education, and as a principal at 2 high schools and an assistant superintendent. And then 7 months ago, I became the superintendent in the San Mateo Union High School District. And so, as we were speaking before, I love high school age students. I love high school age issues. And so for me, this is kind of one of my dream jobs.
So was it sort of a natural evolution for you? Did you think that you would be just in the classroom for forever, and somebody just tapped you on the shoulder and said, you have really good leadership skills. You really need to be in these other positions. I mean, how did that evolve for you?
Well, for the first probably 12, 13 years, I was teaching government and world history to 9th and 10th grade students. And then in the afternoons, I was walking across the street and coaching baseball at Stanford. And so one of the people that influenced me a lot was the head baseball coach at Stanford, Mark Marquis. And very, very strong moral core, likes to do things the right way, and saw him organize a baseball program for a long period of time and do things, you know, in the right way. You hear a lot about how college athletics and, you know, big time business, but that's not the way he ran his program. And then at the high school, I was in the classroom for 12, 13 years, and then gradually various different people in the organization would tap me for tasks. And so WASC, we have to go through an accreditation process about every 6 years in public high schools. And so another one of my quote-unquote mentors asked me to run that for Palo Alto High School, and I got my first taste of pulling together an organization. And gradually over time, between coaching and opportunities to be a head coach and opportunities at the high school to do more types of leadership things, I started to dip my toe into the waters. And then, to be honest with you, it was the mid-90s, and I had 2 young children. And we were sitting here, and I would be teaching in the mornings, and I would coach all days and nights, and I would be coaching on the weekends. And then all of a sudden, my sons became, you know, in the 5, 6, 7-year-old range, and I wanted to spend more time with them. So I said, okay, I will become an administrator, and that way I can control my own time. Bad mistake, because you don't control your time any more than you did beforehand. But that's the way I got involved. And so I started off as an assistant principal and dean, and grew from there.
So was there something in particular that drew you to the peninsula? You grew up in the Central Valley, and...
Well, to be honest with you, it's going to Stanford and then teaching there for a long period of time. I've taken, you know, various different kind of paths in different ways. I worked for California Institute of Technology down in Pasadena for 3 years. I worked for Colorado State for a few years, and every single time that we would go away, for whatever reason, I got pulled back to the peninsula. Most of the time, you know, my wife is from Los Altos Hills, and she's also a Stanford person. A lot of our family's from here. A lot of our friends are here. But I love the vibrancy of the peninsula. It's a place where you have a high concentration of very articulate, very intelligent people, and there's a lot of exciting things going on, and I think I just enjoy that kind of atmosphere. So every time I go away, it's like just for a year or two, and then we always end up, for some reason, coming back.
So you talked about some of the different things that you've done. Are there some specific things in your career that helped prepare you for the work that you're currently doing?
Well, I think probably there were 3 things that most helped me. being a high school principal in Palo Alto, or being a high school principal anywhere, is a very, very challenging job. And when you work in a place like the Peninsula, when you're surrounded by a lot of very, very intelligent people, being from Palo Alto, you're right across the street from Stanford. And so you have a lot of very smart people that believe that they know what is the right way to do things. They're also very, I mean, a lot of folks are very competitive. It's one of the reasons why they can be successful in a place of high wealth and high intelligence. And so running both Palo Alto High School and Gunn High School allowed me to be in charge, to a certain extent, to run a large organization and to have to understand various different parts of how to run a public high school. And then after doing that for about 7 years, I ended up going and becoming an assistant superintendent. And my job actually was, I was an assistant superintendent for secondary education and all of the duties as described. And that potentially meant down there, anytime there were issues that needed to be addressed. And so I became a problem solver and fundraiser. And that's the type of thing that really trains you well for being a superintendent. It's the same type of thing. You have to make multiple decisions with as much information as you have at that time. You have to plan well in advance. You have to kind of take the 30,000-foot view of how to run an organization and really trust your people. And so in Palo Alto and here in San Mateo Union High School District, I've found that we have quality people all throughout the organization, and it's made my job tremendously easy to be able to stay up at the 30,000-foot level and look at the big picture.
So would you say that that's sort of the main focus of your job, is to be the person who has the big picture in their hands at all times?
Yeah, I would say so. It's an interesting dynamic being in a high school, a union high school district. We cover 6 different communities, and about 250,000 people live inside the boundaries of the school district. And so one of the things that I have to be able to do is juggle a lot of information very, very quickly, and have to really figure out, which we're still trying to do, how to communicate with a large number of municipalities. So we have 6 different city managers that we have to work with, 6 different rec directors that are engaged in our facilities. We have to work with 6 political entities, as well as the county offices in the San Mateo County Council. So there's a lot of things we have to do, and if I get tied up in the minutia, then it can be really, really problematic as far as me being able to keep the big picture, which is important when you're running a large organization.
So what are some of the specific challenges that you feel are facing you right now as a superintendent? Well,
I think anybody that you probably talk to that's in politics or in the public sector right now would say that the budget's the single key focus, and it translates to everything. I mean, we have a basic core mission of educating students so they're prepared for the 21st century. The problem is, how do you do that when you're being funded at a level that's 5 or 6 years old? And so we're cutting services, we're cutting opportunities, and at the same time, the demands on our students are getting higher and higher. And I'm not just talking about the testing demands, I'm talking about the expectations for people to be productive members of our society. It's hard to feel good going home when I'm cutting every day, when I'm trying really hard to get our students so that they're able to perform and compete in a global economy. And I would say that probably is the biggest focus, and it leads us into a whole bunch of different directions. It's not just all about cuts. We're trying to find revenue streams. So we're trying right now to put solar on our high school campuses to create a revenue stream of about $1.8 million. I never in my entire life, when I started off as a high school history teacher, thought I would be working trying to figure out how to put photovoltaic panels on top of a high school building.
Right.
But that's the world we live in now.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting, but and challenging. And the other thing I believe is that communication and teaching is different than it was 15, 20 years ago when I was going to school. You know, you're on a typewriter, and news was, you know, you could kind of get in this news cycle of about a month. The half-life of news these days is about a week.
Right.
So it's an interesting time to live in.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of City County Profiles. I'm Almetria Vaba, and thank you for joining us.